You actually just defended your doctoral dissertation on Friday, was it?
Yes.
Congratulations, first of all. How did it go?
Thank you. It went pretty well, asked for me. I don't know what audience thought, but I survived.
Perfect, congratulations. So let's get to the actual hard facts and your research. How does a person's socioeconomic status affect whether they vote in elections or not? Give us a short version.
In contemporary Finland, the differences in the propensity to vote in elections are quite dramatic, according to whether people have high or low education, what kind of occupation they have, or what kind of income they do have.
So you actually found some pretty drastic differences. Your data is somewhat exceptional also. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. Most of the previous research had been done using survey data, so people are interviewed with all kinds of questions. But in Finland, there has been a rare opportunity to get data based on actual voting registers. We have to keep book on that people won't vote twice, of course, and these data have been managed to combine to some population registers as anonymized in Statistics Finland, and then we kind of know whether some people vote or not.
So the gist of it is that the more educated you are, or the higher education level you have, or a sort of more high-powering job you have, then you're more likely to vote. This has changed, these differences have somehow changed over time. What has happened to these differences?
Yes, we have two, my main data is from 2015 elections, but we have some previous knowledge from 1987 and 1999 parliamentary elections. There were every single vote was combined from paper lists back then. That must be a job for research assistants. But in 1987, we already saw the educational differences in all age groups in terms of probability to voting. But between that and 1999, the turnout dropped, the overall turnout, and the differences, particularly in younger age groups, grow substantially. Since then, the turnout has actually increased a little bit, but the polarization has continued. And it's particularly in younger age groups and education, it's very high. It's something like, shouldn't quote numbers straight on top of your head, but if we take 30-year-old people, those with only basic education voted for, if I remember correctly, to 31% probability, and those with master level degree almost 90, it was 87 or something. So it's multiple times the difference.
That's a huge difference. Where do you think these differences, especially in young people, stem from? I thought that all youngsters are really activating politically with climate change and issues like that. Why do you think these differences are becoming bigger? And
young people are, but in many senses, but they are not homogeneous group. Actually, those young people with much education, their turnout has actually increased from the turn of the century. This is a big question. I don't know. There is probably not a single answer. Something clearly has happened in the Finnish society during the last few decades. It's worrying that some people want or don't want or cannot or don't trust system or that, and it goes quite neatly with the lines of overall social inequality. Perhaps there is some kind of overall trends of increasing inequality, or the political system perhaps have moved closer to somehow middle class experience. Do we have that many, say, working class members of parliament or something like that? Then we use these are things that should be investigated, really.
This, I guess we can all agree that this sounds a bit worrying if you might not vote if I mean, you might not be as likely to vote if you are a member of working class. Tell us why this is actually really worrying and where could it lead?
Oh, how much time do we have?
Quite a lot still.
Okay, I tell 6 points. First, we can think of this as some kind of wider social indicator that there is some problems with the integration of some social classes or political exclusion from the system. Second, it has been argued that one form of participation increases others. So this could be worrying for the healthiness of the civil society in a wider sense as well. Then, this is all, voting is not just any form of participation, but it's crucial in representative democracy, and it directly eats that legitimacy, like one individual, one vote, that's the guiding principle, and it doesn't happen these days. Fourth, this has also practical implications, most likely, that politicians they even might have an obligation to follow the interests of their voters, and if for example, people with low income doesn't vote, then we have biased decision making toward those of the interests of those with much money. And this is the topic of very many everyday political struggles, whether we raise taxes or cut services. 5, of course, if somebody is a political party leader here or something like that, there is a market segment that you should address at the moment. So we may interpret the rise of populist parties, perussuomalaiset, as some kind of that perhaps old left-wing parties have somehow lost touch to their traditional supporters, and Timo Soini really targeted that segment, I would say, and succeeded also. And then finally, it might be that like say education and voting, that the relationship is causal. Then we can, for example, if we increase the mandatory education as they are planning to do, then that might be seen as a higher turnout overall, if that's the case.
So my question is now, who can we blame for this? Are political parties doing something, have they been doing something wrong? Or is it something in the system, or what would you presume?
Something has happened. I don't have any final answers on that. But I would really encourage political parties at least to take these issues seriously.
And then again, the million-euro question that we are all asking ourselves: if this is happening, what should we actually do about it? What can we do about it? Do we have any practical solutions?
As this is a big question, it probably has to do something like that. We are not longer in that unitary culture, and overall, we investigated this a little bit. If people change their position during their working career, the probability to vote tend to partially follow. That would mean that open society with much mobility would probably produce narrower differences. Of course, I could. Not a single trick is probably not going to help, but since I'm here, I might propose some concrete things to think, let's say. First of all, we have got evidence from Sweden. This year, Populist Excellence Study, they studied their increase in compulsory education, and it increased turnout specifically for those with low socioeconomic background in their childhood families. So this might be good. And as well, there has been promising evidence from Austria in lowering the voting age. Actually 16-year-olds are quite interested in voting, and if you learn that habit, then then it's easy to vote in the future too. And of course, particularly if the education is increased, then these people can be accessed by schools. So family background differences could narrow. That's a big question, lowering the voting age. But from that particular perspective, I see that promising.
So actually very concrete ideas, longer compulsory education, lower voting age might have something to do with this.
Yes, I think it's promising.
Perfect. Let's give a round of applause to Hannu Lahtinen.
you.